Back in high school, Dayang waited for Dajang every single day, even though she was often late. Even though her being late meant he had to run punishment laps with her, he never complained once. Instead, he carried her school bag without any hesitation and softly promised her that he would always look after her, beginning with making sure she wouldn't be late anymore. The next morning, Dayang had called Dajang to wake her up, but she responded groggily and asked him if he could sing her a song. He agreed and sang the song terribly, which caused some students passing by to laugh loudly at him, making him feel grumpy and annoyed. However, even though his singing was so bad, it made Dajang laugh with wild, uncontrollable giggles, and those giggles eventually helped to get her out of bed on time. On the day when Dajang bravely stood up for Aiden by throwing her backpack at the bullies, Dayang watched the whole event quietly with a small smile of amusement on his face. After Dajang and Aiden ran away from the scene, he quickly stepped in and rescued Dajang's backpack from the bullies, who were already digging through her things without permission. At the school festival, Dayang had knelt down carefully to tie Dajang's shoelaces, teasing her by saying that untied shoelaces meant your soulmate was about to appear. Later on, he asked her to meet him at the basketball court, where he gave her back her backpack and made a playful deal. If he could make a difficult basket, she would have to grant him a wish. He shouted loudly, "Jung Dajang, be my girlfriend," just as he threw the ball, and he scored perfectly. But even though he made the shot, Dajang refused to grant his wish. That evening, after it got dark, a former alum took the stage and sang a love song for all the students. As the music filled the night air, Dajang came over to join Dayang. She told him that a true confession should come from the heart, and that his trick shot didn't feel sincere. "I'm sorry," Dayang said softly. "I was so sincere that maybe I wasn't honest. But I have never been insincere to you, and I promise to always treat you sincerely. I like you, Dajang." As the music grew louder and filled the air, Dajang quietly reached out and took Dayang's hand in hers. In a soft and gentle voice, she told him that the song playing, "If I Love Again," was her favorite. In the present, Dayang was walking home when suddenly a little girl ran straight into the street, right into the path of a speeding van. Without thinking twice, he rushed forward and used his own body to protect her. He was rushed to the hospital, unconscious. When he finally opened his eyes, feeling dazed and confused, he realized something strange. Just moments later, Dajang burst into the emergency room and threw herself into his arms, tears streaming down her face. Their children quickly followed, gathering around the hospital bed, and Dayang whispered an apology for frightening them so much. Later, while he lay resting in his hospital bed, a nurse accidentally knocked the calendar off the table. Shia bent down to pick it up, and the date on the calendar caught her attention. It was December 2017. "This is a dream, isn't it?" Dajang asked softly. She looked closely at Dayang's face, searching for answers. What happened? But Dayang only frowned, struggling to remember. His memories felt hazy and just out of reach. The nurse's voice started calling Dayang's name, again and again, getting louder each time. Then, finally, Dayang truly woke up. He was still in his 18-year-old body. The mother and the little girl he had saved stood quietly by his hospital bedside. Thankfully, the girl was safe and unharmed, and Dayang had only a mild concussion. But as he lay there, a deep sadness washed over him. In his dream, he had been surrounded by Dajang and their children, held tightly in their warm arms. But now, in reality, he was alone, no one to care for him, no one to stay by his side. The loneliness hit him hard. He let himself cry for just a moment before wiping away his tears and quietly leaving the hospital. Later that evening, he went to the convenience store where Xia worked, hoping to catch her after her shift so he could walk her home. But when he arrived, he was told she had already left. He knew the shortcut she often took through a dark alley, so he rushed that way, worried. Despite his earlier warnings, Xia had decided to take the alley route. She walked carefully, staying alert, but suddenly a man with a creepy grin stepped out in front of her, blocking her path. Feeling danger, she ran, but the stalker was fast and grabbed her quickly. What he didn't expect was that Xia could fight, and fight well. With quick and practiced moves, she broke free and kicked him hard, making him stumble back. It wasn't surprising, really. Xia and her mother had recently taken a self-defense course together, and Xia had been so good that even the instructor looked a little afraid of her. For some reason, Xia didn't run away right away. Instead, she stood there, catching her breath, and almost proudly started talking about how good she was at fighting to the stalker she had just knocked down. She didn't see how quickly he was getting back up. The man stood up, pulled a knife out of his jacket, and started moving toward her again. That was when Xia remembered the most important advice her instructor gave about dealing with an attacker who had a weapon: to run. Without any hesitation, she pulled the alarm that Dayang had clipped onto her bag and ran as fast as she could. As they burst out of the alley, the stalker close behind her. Suddenly someone flew at the man from the side, Dayang, who tackled him without thinking. It was only after the fight began that the shocking truth hit Dayang like a punch to the stomach. The girl the stalker was after was his own daughter. Soon after, they all ended up at the police station. When Dajang arrived and saw that Xia was safe, she looked very shaken, much more upset than Xia herself. Calmly, Xia pointed out the stalker, who was now smirking at Dayang and trying to attack him again, but the police held him back every time. The man hissed angry threats at Dayang, even saying he would sue him. But Dajang didn't wait. With fierce anger in her eyes, she charged at the stalker, and just moments later, her mother arrived. After seeing what was happening, she quickly joined Dajang, and together they beat the man badly. When the police officers finally checked the stalker's record, the mood changed. They found out he was on probation for attempted sexual assault. In his bag, there were many photos of Xia and her family. It turned out that all this time, the stalker hadn't been following Dayang at all, it was Xia. He had been planning to kidnap and hurt her. The police quietly watched as Xia's whole family took turns beating up the stalker. After exchanging knowing looks, the officers decided there was no rush to stop them just yet. Eventually, the tension at the station began to fade, and everyone started to calm down. As they got ready to leave, Dajang's mother turned to Dayang and sincerely thanked him for protecting Xia. In that moment, Dayang forgot himself and called her mother-in-law. She blinked in surprise but kindly assumed he was just teasing because he liked Xia. As he walked away, Dajang and her mother watched him quietly. "He really does look just like the young Dayang," Dajang whispered. Her mother nodded thoughtfully and added, "It's not only the looks. There's something else, something in the way he behaves." The next morning, over breakfast, Dajang brought up something that had been on her mind. "Xia has been coming home pretty late these days. she said, watching her daughter closely. I want to know why. Shia froze, her spoon paused in midair. Before she could say anything, Shivu quickly jumped in to cover for her. She's being kept late after school. It's punishment because she's been late every morning, he said, acting like it was no big deal. Dajang's mom quickly changed the topic. So, when will you be on TV again? She asked, looking at her daughter. Dajang hesitated for a moment, then explained about the offer she had received to be on a show about divorce. At first, her mother's face showed disappointment. But when Dajang said she planned to accept the offer, her mother's expression softened, and she smiled warmly. Of course you should, she said kindly. The twins immediately agreed, almost speaking together, saying they thought it was a good idea. After school, Jihu waited at the bus stop to pick up his niece, Seoyeon, because her nanny was busy that day. He smiled brightly and opened his arms wide to greet her, but Seoyeon barely looked at him. She walked by with the cool confidence of a tiny, very independent adult. At the crosswalk, she refused to hold his hand and crossed all by herself, just like the strong little woman she was. Later, Jihu had an interview scheduled at JBC. He brought Seoyeon with him and set her up with her coloring books while he went to get his makeup done. But while he was busy, Seoyeon saw someone dressed as her favorite cartoon character. She was so excited that she wandered away without Jihu noticing. Luckily, she met Dajang. Dajang didn't know who Seoyeon was, but she saw that the little girl was alone and decided to take care of her. As soon as Jihu finished getting his makeup done, he looked around to check on Seoyeon and suddenly realized she was gone. He immediately panicked and ran through the station, searching for her everywhere. Finally, he found her safe with Dajang. Dajang was surprised to learn that the little girl she had been watching over was actually the niece Jihu always talked about. Relieved, Jihu told Seoyeon to wait in the green room while he did his interview, but she crossed her arms and pouted. It's boring, she said, clearly unhappy. Seeing this, Dajang smiled kindly and offered to take her out for ice cream instead, which made Seoyeon's face brighten. Meanwhile, during music class, Shia and her friends were chatting and wondering how many new couples might start dating after the upcoming school festival. Shia didn't seem very interested in the dating talk, but when someone asked, she shrugged and admitted she liked guys who were straightforward. That small confession made both Jiho and Jasak sit up and pay close attention. When it was time to pick seats, though, it was Daeyoung who quietly sat down next to Shia, surprising everyone. Teacher OK then announced that duet performances were coming soon. When Daeyoung happily said that Shia was his best friend in class, Teacher OK immediately added him to Shia and Bobe's team, making it a trio instead of a duo. Curious, Shia asked if he could play any instruments. Daeyoung smiled, picked up a guitar, and strummed a few chords confidently. As the melody filled the room, Shia's face changed. She recognized the song. It was If I Love Again, the very one her father used to play and sing for her when she was little. The music touched something deep inside her. Elsewhere, Varyumi was interviewing Jihoon. Her mind briefly drifted to something Wonki had told her. Popularity would be an important factor in deciding which interns would be hired full-time. With that in mind, Varyumi suddenly went off script and asked Jihoon about Seoyeon, even though they had agreed before not to talk about her. Then she pressed further, asking what kind of woman Jihoon imagined for his future. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened, and irritation showed clearly in his eyes. After the interview, Ji-hoon came back to find Seo-yeon completely focused on a story Dajung was reading to her. It was a book Ji-hoon had read to her before, but Seo-yeon had said he was no fun. Now, hearing Dajung's lively voices and acting, Seo-yeon was totally captivated. Trying to make up, Ji-hoon offered to buy Seo-yeon more ice cream, but she replied coldly that she would get it herself. As they walked together, Ji-hoon sighed and admitted he didn't know how to braid Seo-yeon's hair like Dajung had done. He thanked her sincerely. Then, almost like an afterthought, he congratulated her on her new show. He'd overheard Vyumi and others whispering mean things about Dajung getting the job. Dajung gave a small smile and said she accepted the offer because her kids liked seeing her on TV. Though they didn't tell me that directly, she added softly, a little sad. Dukjin decided to make use of teacher Ok's hesitant agreement to have coffee with him. But when she arrived at the park where they'd planned to meet, she was shocked to see a huge, flashy sign that said, "Will you date me?" with balloons and streamers waving in the wind. She stared, surprised. "Did you do this?" she asked sharply. Seeing her unhappy look, Dukjin panicked right away. "Of course not," he said nervously, quickly telling his staff, "Take it down. Now." They sat down with their coffee, and after a moment, Dukjin casually said, "Thanks for the date." Teacher OK almost choked on her drink. "This isn't a date," she said firmly. "I only agreed because of what you did, as a father, not because I'm interested in you." Her voice was serious and clear. She looked him straight in the eye and told him to stop the inappropriate behavior. But Dukjin didn't give up. He asked, "Is it because I'm a parent?" She paused just a little too long, then said, "No. It's because you're an anime fan." Clearly that was lie. Her voice didn't match her words, and anyone who knew her personally well would have known she loved anime. Later, as Dukjin walked back to his office feeling down, he bumped into Aerin in the lobby. Still holding the bouquet that teacher OK had clearly refused, he offered the flowers to Aerin instead. She took one look at the flowers and immediately understood what they meant. Without warning, she smacked him with the bouquet. "This is exactly why you can't get a girl," she snapped, clearly frustrated. Nearby, Dukjin's assistants overheard the end of their talk and exchanged knowing looks. They were pretty sure Dukjin had just been rejected. Their suspicions were soon confirmed when they overheard Aerin on the phone, loudly complaining about a clingy guy she used to date. Meanwhile, across town, Dajung was crossing the street when she noticed an elderly man struggling with a cart of groceries that had tipped over. Without a second thought, she hurried over, helped him pick up the scattered items, and safely guided him away from the busy road. Once they reached the sidewalk, she kindly offered to walk him all the way to his destination. The man smiled warmly but politely declined. "You've already done more than enough," he said. "I only wish I could repay you someday." "There's no need," Dajung replied with a gentle smile, then went on her way, unaware that this very same man had recently quietly helped Daeyoung with a difficult personal problem of his own. The day of the school festival finally arrived, bringing back many memories that Daeyoung hadn't realized were still with him. Around the festival grounds, Jiho and Jasik kept running into each other. They both seemed drawn to the same places and the same fun activities. Each time they met, their faces twisted into snarls and icy glares, like sworn enemies forced to share the same space. Then, both of them were completely caught off guard when they spotted Xia. She was dressed in a lovely, old-fashioned costume for the photography booth. Without hesitation, Dayang stepped forward and began taking pictures of Xia and her friends, snapping photo after photo. Jiho and Jasak exchanged another low growl, this time aimed at that jerk who kept butting into their moments. Later, looking for some privacy, Dayang took out his phone and sent the pictures of Xia and Shivu to Dajang, signing the message as Wuyang. That night, Seoyeon was already in bed when Jiho decided to try reading a story to her again. He copied the funny voices Dajang used before and managed to make Seoyeon laugh for real. Feeling proud, he quickly texted Dajang to share his little win and asked if she was finished with work yet. She answered that she still had to work late into the night. As night grew deeper, Do Won-kyung took the school stage once again, just like she had the very first time Daeyoung was a student. None of the current students knew who she was, but to Daeyoung, the moment felt powerful. Then she started singing If I Love Again. In his mind, he pictured holding hands with Dajang once more. But the harsh truth hit him, he was completely alone. He slipped quietly away from the crowd and saw a text from Dajang. She had sent back the pictures of the kids to Daeyoung. Feeling suddenly vulnerable, he messaged her again, asking if he could come to the station to see her right away. She said yes. Without hesitation, he ran as fast as he could. When he arrived, Daeyoung's eyes caught Jihoon's interview playing on the Jumbotron. Waryumi asked what kind of woman Jihoon hoped to find. Jihoon's answer was honest and heartfelt, I want someone with a beautiful smile. Someone brave and cheerful whose very presence lifts my spirits. She might be clumsy sometimes, but she is great at work. I want someone who surprises me, and most of all, a warm-hearted and mature woman. Dajang came outside and saw Jihoon's words too. She muttered softly that such a perfect woman didn't exist. But to Daeyoung, it was clear, Jihoon was describing Dajang herself. As he watched, Jihoon appeared nearby, and Daeyoung saw how genuinely happy Dajang was to see him. Additional scene. The day after the big basketball game, Xia's friend Somi nervously gave Shivu a drink and shyly congratulated him on his win. Shivu, still caught up in the excitement, asked Daeyoung if he had ever dated anyone. Daeyoung said no but described his ideal girl, a woman with a beautiful smile, brave and cheerful, someone who chased her dreams with passion and made him want to be a better man. It was exactly how Jihoon had described Dajang. Shivu shook his head and said no such perfect girl existed. But Daeyoung insisted that she did. Now, carrying the heavy weight of everything, Daeyoung did the hardest thing he ever had. He turned his back on Dajang and Jihoon and walked away.